I started recording. Yeah.
Okay.
The other class I have to update it. I mean, like into the YouTube. Um, okay, cool. Okay, so here I'm just creating a new class. So I'm naming it as destructure. Okay. Okay. So a data structure, when I call it, so the way that is data is stored in memory. Okay. So, like for example, if we have a variable, when I say variable, some string v is equal to some value like test. So here v is the reference for the memory location. The type of the memory location is string, and we are storing in that memory location test. So that's what we are doing. We were doing. Okay. So in the similar fashion, we can store int, we can store boolean, double. Character and all those different types. So this is one single variable. It's not a structure, it's a single variable. When it comes to structures, we generally use arrays. When I say arrays, array is a structure, correct? So how it is a structure? So you have list of memory locations. So you have list of memory locations. In list of memory locations, we are going to store multiple values. So because it's a structure of data that is stored, where you can read them, like they call it as last in first out, first in first out. So there are different data structure rules. But for example, for now, you can just think that an array has multiple. It can store more than one value. Okay. Um, so for example, I can store in an array list of strings. List of strings is like names. So you can store multiple names. But the disadvantage with array is you have to give the sizes, you have to predefine the size. So you have to predefine the size, and you have to tell the size like whether it is 5 or 6 names that you have to store. Means you cannot dynamically update an array. Like if you want, now you have defined the size as 6, and tomorrow you want to update the array to 7. You cannot do that because your size is already, it's not dynamic, it's static. Means once you have mentioned 6, it's 6. So if you want to try to add something as 7, or if you want to try to read something as 7, it will not do it. It's not the dynamic enough. So when come to arrays, the other problem with arrays is you can store only data of one type. When I say data of one type, either you can store strings or ints. You can store string or int or or like boolean, or character array, int array, boolean array, string array. Means you can store set of strings or set of integers like 1 to 10, or set of boolean values which are true false, etc. Set of decimal values 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. So you can store only one specific data type. You cannot store combination. Like you cannot store in an array like combination of string and int, or combination of string and boolean, combination of string, int and boolean. So you cannot store like that. array has Array is a very specific thing. You should have a serious count of how much what you are storing. You have to predefine the list, the count, and once you add the numbers, and if you want to read the numbers, you can do it. The disadvantage is you cannot dynamically change an array, and you cannot have multiple data types in one single array, or you cannot dynamically expand an array. So one and the same. So those are the disadvantages of having an array. Okay. Mostly when we are collecting data, right, it will not be either string format or int format or boolean format. It can be any format. So how can we store data with multiple sets of format, dynamically expanding? So those things can be achieved in Java using something called collections. So using Java collections, we can store data. The data that can be stored in the form of a list or a map or a set, pretty much different collections. There are different names for collections, and we have collections. So in the collections, we can, the advantage is it can dynamically expand its space. Means you can store 10, and you can also expand it to 11, 12, 13, and expand it to bigger sizes. And you can also store combination of objects, combination of your classes, combination of different things. In collection also, the way that we store in data can be different. I mean, if you have a list, right, it stores in a linear fashion, like an array, like 0, 1, 2, 3. It will allocate memory locations like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the location 0 you can have one value, location 2 you will have one value, location 3 you will have one value, location 4 you can have one value, and you can also iterate and read them. If you go to, there is something called map. If you're using a map, or we call it something like dictionary object. When I say dictionary object, right, it's a key value pair. Like in a dictionary we have a word and its meaning, right? In the same way, you will have a key. For the corresponding key you will have a value. So for a dictionary object, it will store it in key value pair. Similarly, you will have tree structures, linked lists. I don't want to really go into all those, very heavy concepts of computer science. But what I'm saying is, like, you can have data that can be stored. Mainly, we use list and map as the main structures in collections. A list is a linear fashion of storage. That means you can store like with a value which is starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can read from 0, 1, 2, 3, or you can read it from middle, anywhere. Pretty much you can read any value. When you are using a map, right, you are using pretty much like a key value pair. So you call the key, you call the value. Like if you call some key, some word, it will get the meaning, right? In the same way, you call some key, you will get the value. For example, I am trying to book something in a flight, and my data, whatever the data, what data I need to have my the where I'm starting, where is my starting point for my flight, where I'm going, my dates, whether I'm an adult or whatever the factors that is. If I have my flight, any specific timings that we have, my credit card information, my personal information, like I have to give my name, my last name, my age, my credit card information, my address, my email address to send me email, and pretty much all those details. They are all called data. The data for booking that flight, right? So that data, when you are storing it, when you take, like for example, the first one, the name and or the flight that you are starting from and the flight that you are going from is strings, because you will have codes DAL2, which is a Love Field Airport or something like that, to something Chicago Airport. So you will, those two are strings because you enter some strings to do that. The next one is dates, because you are entering the date that you are starting and you are returning. The number of passengers is integer, like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an integer. And then the next one, flight can be an integer or a string, flight name, flight ID. The seat selection, like for example, if you're selecting 23A, that's a string. The next page, if you go, you are giving passenger information, your age is integer, but your first name, last name, everything is strings. If you go to credit card information, most of them are strings except your credit card expiry date or your credit card starting date. Those things will be still dates. So you have, date is an object is like you have a date which has set of it's in Java, everything is an object, right? So date is an object which has its characteristics, like the current date or the previous date or like pretty much any date, and it will have some values and everything. So you can store in, if you are passing a data, you will have objects, you will have strings, you will have integers, you will have pretty much different data structures. So in an array, you cannot store all these different data structures into one thing. Whereas in collections, you can store all these different things into either an array or into a map. So how we can do that, we will see that now. Any questions?
No, I'm good, Bharat.
Uma?
I'm good too.
Did Amrita join or
Yeah, I'm here, Bharat.
Amrita? You have any questions or you?
No, I'm good actually.
Okay, so very important thing. I mean, I want you guys to make sure that you understand this because collections will be very useful. I mean, you to understand list and map for sure. You have to be on par. Okay. Um, so there is something called set also. We use very rare. I mean, most of the people, if you know list and map, it's like 100% you can work with it. But set is another data structure which will be mostly like list, but you cannot store duplicate values. If you want to store duplicate values, set, if you have two duplicates, right, it will make it one. So you cannot store, like say, for example, if you went to Amazon, you added one item into the cart. If you add second item into the cart, it will add the quantity, not the product again, right? Like that. Set is something like, if you're adding something, it'll add like a unique product, not that it'll add multiple, it'll not list it as a multiple products. So you have list, you have set, you have map, you have tree, you have linked list. So all different data structures. So what is the advantage of having different data structure is, like, if you have a map, right? So if you want to search something, okay, if you have 100 items and if you want to get one item out of it, so if you use a map, you can say, okay, I just need that item by key value. For example, in the previous example, I want first name of the first passenger. It's in a map. The first name of the first passenger is a key, and the value is Bharat or anything. So it's easy to fetch the data using this map, and structure of map. It's very easy to fetch data. If you want to iterate through the map, it's very tough. I mean, we don't really use, like, if you want to say you want to iterate through the students of all the class, like using a for loop, you want to go through all the persons in the class, then I don't suggest map, I use list. So it all depends on how you are really working with these collections. Okay. For example, I have a web page, for example, and so for example, I'll take a google.com page. Okay, google.com page. In the google.com page, I wanted to know list of all the links. Okay, when I get all the, if I want all the links, there are a lot of links: privacy, terms, settings, advertising, business, Gmail, images, everything is a link here. Okay, so all about here, about store, if you click any link, right, it is going to some page. If you click on store, it is going to some page. So if you want to click on Gmail, if you're going to page, so see here, every object is of type link. If you're storing in certain data structure, either you can use map. The map is like, so you can have Gmail and the value of the Gmail or the object of this Gmail, images, object of this Gmail. So if you say that get me the value of a Gmail, then it will get you the link of this Gmail. If you get the link of these images, it will get you link. In the similar version, if you want to click on all the links on this page, no matter it is Gmail or no matter it is images, then I don't go for map. I'll say I'll add everything into a list. I'll use a for loop. I'll click each and every link. So it all depends on how you use these data structures in a day-to-day manner and what you're trying to achieve with these data structures. So so it will be sometimes someone's are easy to fetch the data, someone is easy to iterate to the data, someone is easy to insert the data, some data structure is easy to not having duplicates. So all these things you should think of in the real time scenario. But 99% of the times we use list or map. Okay. Mostly if you use list or map, 99% you'll be good in testing, at least in a testing perspective. But rest, in a rare scenarios, you can use it or you can just ignore it. Okay. How do you work with it? So Java already has a library. So as I said, Java comes up with the compiler tools and everything. It has a set of libraries. When I say library, these functions are already written in Java and we are just using them. Okay. So it already comes with all these features and we just can use them for our purpose. So for example, I have a list class already present in Java. Okay. So list L1 first list is equal to new. It extends array list. Array is the type of data. Array is the type of the data structure that you are storing in the database. Okay, in your memory. So java.util. So here, if you see this in Java, the one that we have, the Java that here, right? So in the JRE or whatever the library that we have, in this package, Java package, under the util package, I have an array list. In this Java package, util package, I have a list. So these are already written in Java. We are just using them. Like I create a new class and I use that, right? So in the similar fashion, these are already present in Java and I'm just using them. Okay. So now list L1 is equal to new array list is why I have written it like this, because list is an interface. You can have list in terms of array list, tree list, and many types of list. List is nothing but list of items. The list is stored in the form of an array here. That's why it is taking array list. Okay. So list is a structure that you store by one in a format of numeric fashion 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Internally in the memory it is stored in the form of an array. That's why it is inherited from an array list to list, and you have an array list here. Okay, that's how it's you can just think of these things. But generally speaking, we are following inheritance rules. List is a interface, and then all those it's just a idea, and then you are using them in array list, tree list, everything will follow those structures. If you want to really see the diagram, right, I can show you the diagram, so how it looks, mostly for inheritance. You don't need it, but I'm just, for an example, I'm just showing it. Collections. So if you see this a diagram, right, most of them are interfaces. Why interfaces? Because a collection can be a hash set, a collection can be a link hash set, a collection can be a tree set, array list, vector, linked list. You don't get confused. I'm just telling that a collection is an idea or set of functions which are not implemented at all, and a collection is extended to another interface. Interface extends interface. Okay, you have another interface which is set. Okay, a set can be a hash set, linked hash set, tree set. So, and then if you see here, list can be array list, vector, or linked list. Queue can be priority queue, whatever queues. Okay, map can be hash table, link map, hash map, tree map. It's all, everything is a map. Everything has common functions coming from map, but the structure of data that it's stored in the memory is hash map. The structure of the way it is stored in the memory is tree map. Tree structure, you see, mostly tree structures will be like if you see on the sideline bars, like file menu bar or something like that, right? These are mostly like tree structures. If you click on this, you will get more options. For example, see, these are tree structures. So bookmarks, then I go to Bharat, then I see different things, then I go to different things. These are tree structures, like one is to one. So different ways of storing data, but of one type. Okay, like map or anything. These are interfaces because there are set of methods that are common, and those are implemented everywhere differently. Okay, because interface is telling that, okay, if I say map, I need to say put some values to the map, get some values to the map. But whatever way you implemented in hash table or hash map or tree map, I don't want any specifics in here. I am only telling you an idea, and that can be implemented here. Okay, that's what we have seen as part of abstraction. Correct. So this is all abstracted just to make sure that it can take any form. Any questions? Sid?
No, but I'm good.
Yeah. Uma?
I'm good, Bharat.
Amrita?
Amrita only replied actually.
Okay. Uma?
I'm good too.
Okay.
I and Sid was talking at the same time, so you couldn't hear.
Okay, no issues. Okay, so again, like a data structure is nothing but the way that it is stored in, the data in the memory. It can be form of a list, or it can be form of a map, or it can be form of an hash structure, or pretty much different structures, linked list, or whatever it is. So the main important two things that we'll discuss is list and map, because those are commonly used. But as you have seen, there are a lot of different data structures, but mostly for development purposes. In testing, these should be good. And these are simple because everything is already given in Java. I'm just giving a background explanation. How can we add some data into the list? Okay. So for example, I have to add names, as we said, like all the passenger information for a flight reservation. How can I add? So I have to just add, I'm creating a method, public void add to list. So when I say add to list, I have to add something, items to the list. So my L1 is the list name, right? List is here. L1 is the list. L1 dot. So I can just say add. Add is already a function which is present in the Java library for list. So in the add, I can add an object, pretty much whatever object that I wanted to add. I can add string, like say DAL is my starting point. So I've added L1 dot add what is where I'm going. So I'm going to like say EWL. Okay. So some other airport. So I've added second value. L1 dot add. So I can add object also, like new date. New date is another class which will get you the current date. Okay. New date is java.util.date. It will add a date to the list. When I say new date, it will take the current date and it will take the date and it will add here. Okay. L1 dot add. So I can add now I've added strings, right? I can also say new date plus 1, which is the coming thing, or I can say number of passengers is equal to 4. I can also tell types of passengers. L1 dot add. So what kind of passengers we have? ADT, adults. So that is the next one. So like that, I can just add whatever different types of information that we have. If we are using, previously when we are using arrays, right, we could not do this because uh, you know uh, it cannot have multiple values of different data types into one structure. So here if you see in collections, you can add any type of data into one collection, and you can pretty much read the data as part of that also. Okay. So if you want to read the data here, okay, so you can just say read from list. So how can you read from list? You can say L1 dot get. You need to give index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5. So if you say 4, right, you can just read the value that is present in the 4. Just to print this value, I can say sysout. What is the value that is present in? The value that is present in L1 dot get 4. Okay. So you will get the value that is present in the fourth location of that list. Okay. So now if you want to execute this file, I have to create an object I'll just create it here only, main control space. You can create it in another class also, but I'm just creating it here. So I'll say destruct d1 is equal to new destructure d1 dot, I can have functions, whatever the functions that I have, add to list. First I have to add to the list. It's a plain list. When I create an object, in the object it has nothing, so we have added to the list. and d1 dot read from list. So, okay, the second one. So now if I go and run this, right click, run as Java application. So if you see, it is giving me ADT. ADT is here. So even the list starts from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got the value ADT. So, but main thing is everything is present. We go and add and we go and get the similar fashion that we have done more or less like an arrays. But the change is we can have data of different data types into one structure. Clear? Any questions?
No, Bharat.
Yeah, I'm good to.
So what is the advantage of having list is if I want to read all the values that are present in the list. Okay, now I have read like get 4, right? If I want to read all the values in the list, I can write a for loop or for each loop, pretty much any loop, right? For each loop you have to write as an object because these string date int string different objects. See, the main parent class of anything is object. Okay, in Java the main parent I mean the super parent of everything is object. Object, from the object you will have different things, like you will have arrays. Everything is the parent of is coming from a parent called object. So anything here, any class, anything that we have can be part of an object. So that's why we can take object, because here you don't have specific. You cannot tell it is of type string. You cannot tell it is of type some date. You cannot tell that specific type as int, because it's a combination of all these things. That's why I'm giving a common structure called object, that because it's a super thing, super of everything. Object obj extends because there are objects that are present within this list. Correct? In the list, the values that are everything is objects. The object can be a string, the object can be a date, the object can be integer, the object can be anything, pretty much everything. So that extends L1. Sys out. I'm just putting toString is to convert the value, whatever the value that you're getting, into object. Dot toString is nothing but there is a function for the object. toString will convert the value into the string. Okay. So when I run that and click on OK, now it is getting all the values. DAL, EW, date is Tuesday, October 24, 2043, whatever the format is. 4 is the 4th item, and then the adult is the 5th item. So the advantage of having here is you can also iterate and get all the values that you wanted. Okay. But the problem is, if you want to get a specific value by key, right, you don't know where the item is present. And like, for example, blindly you have this list and you're just reading it. You have not added anything into the list. You don't know in what location you have a DAL, in what location, like at location 0 or location 1 you have adult, or location 2 you have this number of passengers. Those things cannot be found by a list, because it's all like indexed by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't have any key value pairs. So how can we add key value pairs for the same data? So let's see that. Okay, you can have map, the second data structure. So when you are using a map, m1 is equal to new. So we have to take a data structure hash map. Okay, hash map is the way that it is stored in the data. The type of data storage is map. Okay, how it is stored is in the hash structure. So that's how you have to derive it. Hash structure is more or like key value pair. Okay, so if you're using a map, so how does it make a differentiation? Let's see that. Okay, same functions, like add to list and read from list. We'll have add to map and read from map. Add to map and read from map. Okay, so when I'm trying to add to map, right, here we will say m1 dot, it's not add it's not add function is not present in the map. It is put function. You have to put what you have to put. You have to put a key. You have to put a value, like from destiny from. You have destination and okay from, like say for example DAL. So here f from is a key and DAL is the value. Okay, if I say if I call from, you will get the so I'll change it to the source. Source is the one that you're starting, source, and the next one you can put it as destination. Okay, command C, command V. So here it is destination. So the destination is EWL. Date of booking, you can give m1 dot put. So for example, the key is date of booking, and you can give value as the same way, new date. Okay, and m1 dot put. So the value is here, it's 4 is nothing but number of passengers, right? The key is number of passengers. You can have spaces or whatever it is. So number of passengers, the value is 5. So you can add in a map key value pairs. The key is this and the values are this. When you're calling it, right, when you are using a map and you're calling it, you can say m1 dot, you can say get, and if you give the key, you will get the value. The key is here source. If you give the source, you will get the value. The value is nothing but DAL. So you'll get that. So sys out. So if you just say command V, so you will get all the values. Okay, so save, run, and if you see here, okay, sorry. So d1 dot add to map, sorry, add to map, and d1 dot read from map. See here, you're getting the values. You're getting, if you say source, you're getting DAL. If you say destination, you will get EWL. If you say date of booking, the idea here is keys you will easily memorize. Values you might not memorize, and the locations you might not memorize. The keys you know it. You can say passenger 1, passenger 2, passenger 3. So easy to fetch the data or store the data in this format. When you are having the data that you are using for your projects, you can store in Java in this format. So and then send it. What is the advantage of having different data structures? For example, if you are creating variables, right? For example, I have to pass this thing in variables. So if I want to pass this thing in variables, I have to create string first name is equal to some value. Okay, and then I have to say string last name is equal to some value, equal to some value. So you have like again string some other thing, like say age or int age is equal to some value, int age is equal to some 5. So you have like, you have to create hundreds of variables like this, and then you have to pass hundreds of variables from one class to another, because wherever you are passing, you have to pass all these values. Instead of that, what you're creating is you're creating one object. If I say m1 now, the m1 has all the values. When I say m1 is not one item. M1 is all the data that you're using for booking, correct? If you just pass m1 to next method or next class and it's an input, right? So what happens is m1 will have all the information that is required for booking. And if I say m1 dot get source, you will get source. M1 dot get destination, you will get destination. M1 dot get number of passengers, you will get all the passengers. So the data is stored in with one variable name, but internally it has all the data that is required for booking. Clear? Any questions?
No, Bharat.
Same here. I'm good.
Okay. So The main advantage of having data structures is if you are sending the data from one class to another, instead of passing 10 variables like string comma string comma string, you can pass it as one map m1. That's it. So you can just pass it to other classes. How can we pass this data to one from one method, one class to another class? So now, like say for example, I have another class here. Test. So here, once I have add to the map, I say return. This function will return, instead of returning integer or anything, I'm returning map m1. M1 is the one that has all the values, right? So when I say return m1, change the method to map. You are adding all the values to the map. You are returning the whole map. This m1 is everything. Okay, you are returning everything from the map. So now so there is no read from map. Okay, when I say add to map, it has added a map. Means, like for example, here it created a map. So you have a map here that was created m1, and you have added all the values to that map. And once you have added all the values of the map, you have transferred that from this function to anywhere someone calls it. Like if this function is called, you are sending all this information to outside the class, correct? So now here, when I call dstructs d1 equal to new dstruct, it created the whole instance of the class. Let me cut this for temporary reason. So for now, I don't have. Okay, so now I have a structure which has a variable which is m1. You can put it as private also, no matter, because it's not read from this one, it is read from a function, right? Once you add, you are reading it from function. So even this is private, it doesn't matter, correct? So now here, when I say dstruct d1 equal to new dstruct, it created an object of this, and it has only one function. When I say add to map, it will add all these values to the map, and it will return this structure to the map, correct? So here, while reading it, you can say map temporary is equal to d1 dot add to map. Map is coming from java.util, because this one is derived from java.util, and you can say this out. So here also you can read temp is a map. It's getting already the values get, and you are sending what you need to get. You need to get first name. So you will get the first name here. Okay. So instead of what we are trying to do now, we created a map here. We have added all the values. Once we have added the values, we are passing that values outside of this class to here. So when we created an object and when we call this function, it added everything and it sent out that value to the as a output, and then we captured that into a temporary variable here. Okay. Once we have captured it here, now we are reading it from an outside the class and we are passing it. But if you see here, this temp has everything. It has first name, it has last name, it has age, it has date, everything is present. So right click, run as Java application. Click on OK. See here, first name, I think I have not given as first name. So I have source. So for example, I'll take the source. Okay, see here, now it got the whole map into one with one variable. We are not using 10 strings or 10 integers. We are having one variable which is m1. That map has all the values that you have added, and that map is transferred to this class when you called it, and then you read it from here. You can read it from here, you can read it from another class, you can send it to another class, you can send it to input for another class. So you can do pretty much everything. So all these things are possible using collections. and it's easy to maintain the data in collections instead of having 100 variables, because you'll get confused if it is more than 20 variables or 30 variables. In traditional languages we used to use it, but in Java I prefer using objects. Okay, any questions till here?
I'm good.
I'm good too, Bharat.
Okay, so there are set of things that I wanted you to go through, and this is like, think as an exercise and do it and send it to me. So I take it as an assignment. There are Java libraries. Okay, in the Java libraries, right, we have, like, for example, date library. So for example, I'll take here another class. Okay, if you want to work with, like, say, date, for example, date. So you don't need to create a date, or you don't need to get date. Simply speaking, you can use Java function called date, the class called date. Date d is equal to new date. When I say date d is equal to new date, automatically it gives you the date. This date is coming from a package which is there in from java.util. When I say java.util has already a class which can capture the current date and return you the date. The d has already the date. Okay, so now, so for example, we say sysout and we wanted to use d dot toString. That's what we have done in the previous example. So if I go right click, run as, and then say Java application, click on OK. See, now I'm getting Tuesday, October 24th, 2057 CDT, whatever it is. Okay, now I want you guys to format, send me an output. This output that I'm getting, I want this in the format of like this. My month 6, my date, whatever the date, and then the year 2017. Only these. I don't want rest of it. I want the date that you are getting from Java to be formatted in this format, and then I need that output here. Okay, that's one example, that one thing that you need to try. This is very important. Better try it, because dates are very important when we are working with testing. So try to get a date from Java and format that in the form of like this. In the form of, so this format is like, for example, you can search Google. Okay, there is no worries, everyone does the same. dd/mm/yyyy. So I want in this format. You got that, everyone? Any questions?
Yeah, I got it, Bharat.
So you have, if you're using a class called date,
Yes.
get the current date. I want the currently, if I say d.toString, I'm getting this format, right? Tuesday, October. I don't want in that format. You have to write a program in such a way. You can use Java functions, use Java, you use Google and everything. But the only thing is, like, you make sure that you write a code such that it will format the date in this format, and the output will be given to this. Okay, that's one thing. The next one, if you want to create files, for example, you wanted to create a text file, or you can want to read from text files, sometimes external files. So in Java, if you want to work with files, you can use something called file, buffer reader, all those classes which are already present with Java. Okay, so if you want to create a file f is equal to, say, new file. So when I say f is file equal to new file, it's coming from java.io. io is like input output. So you can just create a new file. It is asking me to give the name of the file or location of the file, or pretty much where you have to. So you can say the location of the file or the name of the file as test as the location, name of the file. And once it is created, you can also save it. Okay, f dot, you can say create new file, and it will create a new file. Um, here I'll just go and create a folder. I think you don't need this. Create new file. You can say file new file is equal to. Just give me 1 minute. I am creating a new folder. I'm naming it as test folder. So right click, get info. I'll get the path of this. I'm using Mac now, so you might see little different, the paths and everything. So I'm creating a file under the folder location, and then once I give the folder location, I'm giving test.txt, or I'll put as test. For now I'll put it as txt. Okay, so if I'm using this, okay, file f is equal to new file, or you can say just new file also. If I just go and save, if I just go and run, okay, if you go to the test here, sorry, I think I'll just put f dot create new file. Okay, sorry, I'm just giving desktop as the location. That's why it's creating in desktop. Just delete. Okay, so I'll just put /test and then that is caps. Okay. See here, it created a file. So now I want you guys to write a program to create a file and write some text into the file and read some text from the file. Read from file and write to file. Okay, so write another program which you can use Java libraries only, you can use internet, but understand every program, every line of it, what you are writing. Try to write a program which you can read from the file and write to a file using Java library. Any questions?
I'm good.
So we have created a file, right? Now you have to use Java libraries to write into that file some text, and also you have to read that file from the text and you have to print here. So that's the program.
Okay, Bharat.
Okay, I'm just telling you in a testing context, these things are very important. Okay, just do them. It'll help you a lot in creating files, reading from files, writing to files. You can also write a program if you have time, creating from a CSV file. I mean, reading and writing from it to a CSV file. Mostly you will work all these things. Parsing an XML file, it'll be extensive. I mean, like it'll be too more, but you can also do something like parsing an XML file, parsing a JSON file. So all these libraries are already present. Okay, you just need to use those libraries in Java to just do your code writing. You don't need to create everything from scratch. Everything is already written. You have to just use them from the Java libraries. Okay, so that ends Java classes. This weekend on Saturday we'll start Selenium classes. Okay, any questions?
I'm good. So Saturday